What's cracking, y'all? You are now watching Boo TV. Appreciate you for stopping in. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified, and let's get into the topic for today. What up, what up, what up? Back with another reaction video, this time from the channel called Nonstop. We have reacted to a couple of videos from this channel, and this one regarding the Scottie Pippen and Michael Jordan beef that has been pretty well chronicled and really has taken a turn for the worse since The Last Dance was released, and then after that it just kind of snowballed into a whole nother beast regarding so many other issues that I'm sure the video will detail. So with no further ado, let's get into it.
Do you think that Michael Jordan would be as successful without you?
No.
In 2009, when Michael Jordan entered the Basketball Hall of Fame, the first person he mentioned and thanked was Scottie Pippen.
You never just saw me, saw Scottie Pippen.
Next year, it was Michael who presented Scottie to the Hall of Fame. When Pippen worked on ESPN and had to do a LeBron versus Jordan comparison, Pippen said this.
And there's no game that I would ever play in and pick LeBron James over Michael Jordan.
But this was in 2018, when Scottie and Michael's relationship seemed like the happiest marriages. While Jordan was known to be a harsh teammate who bullied players and even punched Steve Kerr in the face, we never heard those kinds of stories about Scottie. And then came the pandemic, and the sporting world stopped.
He has just tweeted within the past 2 minutes that the NBA is suspending the season.
Deprived of anything to cheer for, Netflix offered a 10-episode salvation for all sports fans. It was The Last Dance, a long-awaited documentary about the last season of the Bulls dynasty, with behind-the-scenes footage nobody had ever seen before. And when the documentary came out, that's when Scottie's and Michael Jordan's relationship started to change. See, The Last Dance wasn't really a basketball documentary. It was more like basketball was just a means to an end, and where historic NBA events were used to tell a preset narrative. And that narrative was to glorify the cult of Michael Jordan and his place as the basketball GOAT. The Last Dance presented basketball in a way that can be understood by non-basketball fans and casuals. It was directed in a way that puts an individual over a team, which is not surprising, considering that director Jason Hare needed Jordan's approval to make the film, and that Jordan's presence in the film was conditioned by his control over the content. The Last Dance minimized the roles of Jordan's teammates, not properly explaining that MJ had by far the best supporting cast in the NBA. The documentary never mentioned that Steve Kerr was the most accurate three-point shooter of all time, that Horace Grant made 4 all-defensive teams, or that Tony Kukoc was the best European player and the most versatile power forward in the NBA. The doc barely mentioned a defensive ace Ron Harper, and they completely failed to say a single thing about center Luke Longley. Dennis Rodman got a lot of screen time, but much less as the best rebounder in NBA history, and more of a party animal that Jordan needed to drag by the ears from Carmen Electra's hotel room.
I can't really confirm or deny the statements about, how much credit he gave to other players. I only watched a documentary once, and that was during the pandemic, and I don't remember all the little small details. But I definitely remember him talking about Tony Kukoc and how elite he was in Europe. And, that whole situation when they ran up against him in the worldwide play. But I don't know. I could be wrong. I'd have to go through and watch everything again. But I felt like certain players did get some spotlight, but I could be wrong.
But the player who was most heard about the whole thing was Scottie Pippen. And it's not hard to see why.
I had a ruptured tendon in my ankle, and I decided to have surgery late because I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna my summer up trying to rehab for a season.
Scottie Pippen of the Bulls will be out for 2 to 3 months.
What Scottie was trying to do was trying to force management to change his contract. And Jerry wasn't gonna do that.
MJ called out Pippen as being selfish for delaying surgery. That season, Jordan was making $33 million, while Scottie was earning just $2.7 million. While the second episode of the documentary did center around Scottie and his unbelievably hard road to the NBA, in the end, the focus of the narrative quickly returned to MJ. And despite being so Jordan-centric, The Last Dance was a successful project because it achieved 3 goals. It managed to entertain and occupy the sports world in the biggest absence of sports since the 1860s. It served as a nostalgia for the people who lived through the Bulls dynasty, and it revitalized the interest in Jordan among the younger generations. If we look at the doc as an entertaining story for the masses, The Last Dance absolutely killed and knocked it out of the park. But in terms of explaining basketball nuances and strengthening relationships between the Bulls players, The Last Dance backfired completely. In May 2020, after the last episode aired, Jordan sent a rare text to Scottie Pippen. "What's up, dude? I'm getting a word that you're upset with me. Love to talk about it if you have time." Pippen did call him back and explained his displeasure with how the rest of the Bulls were portrayed. When asked about it, Scottie backtracked a little bit. "This documentary has not changed our relationship. We will be friends forever. I told Michael I wasn't too pleased with The Last Dance. He accepted it. He said, 'Hey, you're right.' That was pretty much it." But it wasn't it, and this comment aged badly really quickly. In 2021, Pippen started to unravel his feelings about Jordan, issuing a series of comments during the promotion of his autobiography titled Unguarded. Scottie told a story about how Jordan used to cheat him out of $100 during each Bulls game by bribing the staff to tell him who was going to win Jumbotron races. During a GQ interview, Pip accused Jordan of being selfish for leaving the Bulls to pursue a baseball career.
What did you think when he said he was going to go play baseball?
Yeah, it was a big decision, but it was a selfish decision, but it was kind of who Michael Jordan was.
Implying that he spent too much time grieving the death of his father. Scottie also downplayed Jordan's flu game, saying that he didn't receive any praise for playing the 1998 finals with a herniated disc. But the biggest criticism about Jordan the player was when Pippen said that the Bulls didn't win 6 rings because of MJ, and that they did it in spite of him. Seeing again how poorly Michael treated his teammates, I cringed, as I did back then. We didn't win 6 championships because he was tough with the guys. We won in spite of his bullying. We won because we played team basketball, which hadn't been the case my first 2 seasons when Doug Collins was our coach. In his book, Scottie also changed his perspective on the LeBron versus Jordan debate. I may go as far as to say Mike ruined basketball. In the 80s on the playgrounds, you'd have everyone moving the ball around, passing to help the team. That stopped in the 90s. Kids wanted to be like Mike. And Mike didn't want to pass, didn't want to rebound, or defend the best player. He wanted everything done for him. That's why I always believed LeBron James was the greatest player this game has ever seen. He does everything and embodies what the game is truly about. The rest of the book was even more critical about Jordan and The Last Dance, saying that every episode was the same. Michael on a pedestal, his teammates secondary, referred to as his supporting cast. Michael could shoot 6 for 24 from the field, commit 5 turnovers, and he was still, in the minds of the adoring press and public, the errorless Jordan. Scottie was also pissed that Jordan received $10 million for his involvement in the documentary, while he and the rest of the Bulls got nothing. Pip wasn't done there, and he also unloaded on Phil Jackson during an interview with Dan Patrick.
No, I understand that, Scottie. I'm just going by what you said. You said you need to read between the fine lines. It was a racial move to give Tony Kukoc a rise.
So, I mean, if you knew that Scottie Pippen had been with the Bulls from 87, wouldn't you give Scottie Pippen one opportunity to get a last-second shot without Michael Jordan?
But have you talked to Phil about this? Because by saying a racial move, then you're calling Phil a racist.
I don't got a problem with that.
Scottie took shots at Charles Barkley, calling him not dedicated enough to win a title, and Isaiah Thomas, whom he called a dirty player. However, while we do agree that The Last Dance was overly centered on Jordan, and that there is a lot of truth in Pippen's words about the documentary, we can't escape the feeling that Scottie overreacted. In the doc, MJ still said there is no Jordan without Pippen. The Last Dance covered how underpaid Pippen was and his success as the leader of the Bulls without Jordan. Phil Jackson called Scottie the second best player in the league, and the doc mentioned Pippen guarding Magic in the '91 finals instead of Jordan, a key moment that turned the series around. So for Scottie to be going on this kind of media rampage, it just feels like a bit too much. We understand that it's hard to be the Robin to Jordan's Batman and live constantly in his shadow, and then relive that all over again in the documentary. But after the dust settled and all the insults had landed, it sounds like Pippen was just trying to say outlandish quotes to sell more copies of his book. And throughout all of Pippen's bad-mouthing, Jordan never said another word publicly. There was no statement, trash-talking, or even acknowledging that Pippen suddenly turned into his biggest hater. It was only a sign that all the bridges were burned and that their relationship was broken beyond repair. To add insult to injury, in 2022, MJ's son Marcus Jordan started dating Scotty's ex-wife, Larsa Pippen, which certainly didn't feel good for her ex-husband. Wherever Scotty looked, Jordan was sticking it to a Pippen, and it seems like his anger towards MJ will not stop anytime soon.
I haven't really been following the Larsa Pippen and God, I forgot his son's name, but his son's young Jordan. I haven't been following too closely. I heard some rumors about them having conversations about getting engaged and some other craziness. And I heard Jordan, I saw the video, Jordan disapproves of them being together, et cetera, et cetera. And Larsa Pippen lashing out at Mike, saying some stuff. I don't know. Well, without a doubt, the Last Dance was Jordan-centric. There's no question about that. But of all the other players, like the video said, Scottie Pippen got a lot of exposure, and a lot of good things and great things were said about Scottie in that documentary. Scottie's just hung up on the two things that he didn't like instead of looking at all the great things said about you. Scottie didn't want a single thing bad said about him. That's his problem. He wanted all the glory, but didn't want to take any of the criticism that came with it. It's part of your story, right? I think there was far more good things said about Scottie in that documentary than the really two things that stuck him, which was the BS about him quitting on the team because he was mad that Kukoc got the last shot, and the injury thing. Calling him selfish for that. If there was something else, I might be forgetting. And I guess how he handled that whole contract situation with management. But so many great things were said. And Jordan has always talked highly of Scottie Pippen. Always. But it's not unlike Jordan to not comment, especially publicly, about anything, because that's who he is. And what I've heard is that once you burn those bridges with Mike, like, the bridge is burned. There's no coming back. There's no making up. There's no forgiving each other. Mike is done with you. That's what I've heard. I don't know, but I've heard that for years. And I think Scottie wanting to sell books has something to do with it. But I do think deep down inside, Scottie is bitter and he doesn't know how to really handle that on some level. Also, I'd like to point out that I believe before the documentary or something like that, or maybe after it, shortly after or shortly before, I think Scottie Pippen lost one of his sons, if I'm not mistaken. He passed away, I had heard. So that might have something to do with it. Just as far as being in a bad place, and then how you handle that, and how you perceive people, how your whole world changes and shifts, and your way of thinking changes, things like that. And with his divorce going on around the same time, all this happening, snowballing, might have something to do with it. But still, I don't think that justifies a lot of the nonsense and BS that came out of Scottie's mouth regarding Michael Jordan. A lot of the stuff he said was outlandish and definitely off the mark. But that's how he feels. So I think it's a collection of things of why he's responding the way he's responding and why. So I think we could point out a lot of different factors collectively. But yeah, we haven't heard anything from Mike, and it's going to be highly unlikely that you will ever hear anything from Mike about it ever again. Mike, and people say, well, I wish these two would just get it over with so they can go about their lives. Here's the difference. Mike is already going about his life. Mike ain't worried about nothing. This is how Mike is from everything I've heard. He's on to the next one, man. He's living his life. He's worried about his endeavors. He's worried about his beautiful wife, his family. He's worried about taking that will out of his son's name because Larsa Pippen is after that Jordan money, no question about it. Mike, you better take that boy out your will, man. Don't let her get that fortune. Surprised that Larsa Pippen was probably after Jordan the whole time, even when her and Scottie was together. Her goal was to get to the Michael Jordan mountain, and she couldn't grab Mike, so she went for the next best thing. I'm gonna get his blood, son. I'm gonna reach into that fortune somehow, some way. I'm gonna have Jordan attached to my name. She knows she kept the name Pippen. Now, why should the divorce is over? Why should she go back to her maiden name? There's a reason for that. Think about it. There's a reason for that. You don't want Pippen, but you still want to be a Pippen. Some of these people are messed up, man. But yeah, Jordan ain't losing no sleep, and I don't know where Pippen is now. If he's kind of getting over things, I don't know. But, some people really do feel sad when you see these two people, we see them how we perceive them in the world of sports, at least on a surface level, watching them play, some maybe here and there, some cool behind the scene footage, some locker room footage, and everything's grand. Everything looks happy. You've seen these guys win 6 championships together, 2 3-peats, a dynasty, rule an entire decade, and then everything comes shattering down, crumbling decades later. Hey man, not every story has a happy ending, depending on how many chapters you want to add to that story. Happy ending at the end of 1998 season, 97-98 season, but to be continued outside of basketball, and here we are. Let me know what you think about it, folks. I would love to hear your opinion on this Mike and Scottie Pippen situation. Check out our Michael Jordan playlist. Like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, stay notified. And I'll catch you on the next one. We out, baby.